This is Dr. Aditya Sibi Chakravarti from Dr. Talks. Today, we will be dealing with an entirely new topic that is called as the eosinophilic lung disease. So, what is this eosinophilic lung disease? We basically have to classify the eosinophilic lung disease into two types. Those with the primary eosinophilic lung disease and secondary eosinophilic lung disease. Our concern is not the secondary eosinophilic lung disease. Our concern is the primary eosinophilic lung disease. There are four important primary eosinophilic lung disease, namely primary eosinophilic, the acute eosinophilic pneumonia, the chronic eosinophilic pneumonia, the EGPA, and then hypereosinophilic syndromes. First, we will be dealing with acute eosinophilic pneumonia. So, let's say a 20-year-old male presenting to the casualty with complaints of acute onset, shortness of breath, fever, cough for a period of 5 days, usually within 1 week. With complaints, the patients have got desaturation. The SpO2 is just 88 and the CT shows bilateral diffuse infiltrations. Basically, we will diagnose at this point as an acute respiratory distress syndrome. That will be the diagnosis. The patient sends desaturation and the patient will go for respiratory muscle fatigue. The patient will be intubated. Now, we will basically think this as an ARDS. So, what clinches our diagnosis towards acute eosinophilic pneumonia is that once a patient, if we are able to perform a bronchoalveolar lavage, the ball shows more than 20% of eosinophils. This clinches the diagnosis of acute eosinophilic pneumonia. So, an ARDS like acute presentation with the ball eosinophil more than 20% of eosinophils, with the patient will have a peripheral eosinophilia. Like the acute phase, there won't be any peripheral eosinophilia. After 1 week, the second or third or fourth weeks, they can have increase in the peripheral eosinophils. The patient can have raised ESR, raised CRP, raised WBC counts, and CT showing bilateral diffuse ground glass opacities with interstitial involvement. Just X-ray again shows the bilateral whiteout lung. So this is an emergency situation. You go for intubation. So what is the difference from this from the other acute ARDS syndrome is that it has got a good response to steroids. When you start the patient with steroids, the patient goes in for resolution very quickly once starting on steroids. They are very much steroid responsiveness, and also after the acute phase, the patient won't recur. That is, they won't recur steroids. The post steroid, there will not be any relapse, and also they got a very excellent response to steroids, and also except respiratory failure, they won't have any other organ dysfunctions. So overall, despite an high acute mortality rate, the overall prognosis will be better if treated with steroids. It is important to pick this condition. So this is the acute eosinophilic pneumonia. Now, second will be the chronic eosinophilic pneumonia. This will be again for a 50-year-old female, non-smoker, a known case of bronchial asthma or allergic rhinitis since childhood, and the patient presenting with cough plus shortness of breath plus cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, loss of weight. This presentation. So 30-year-old female, non-smoker, presenting with cough, fatigue, fever, loss of weight, or chronic presentation, NCDs presentation. In the patient, again, will show increase in the IgE levels, increase in eosinophil levels. The patient can have again raised ESR, raised CRP, and there will be evidence of ball. The bronchoalveolar lavage eosinophilia, ball will show eosinophils. And when you do a biopsy, you can also find eosinophilic infiltration to the lung. The patient can, the patient should be treated with steroids. They got very good steroid responsiveness. Usually other immunosuppressants won't be required, just steroids will recover. What is the unique finding in this condition? The chest X-ray or a CT thorax can show predominant peripheral opacities. Near the pleural region, there will be consolidations sparing of the center. This is called as the photographic negative pulmonary edema. Photographic negative pulmonary edema, this is the condition. This is the chronic eosinophilic pneumonia. A 50-year-old non-smoker female is more common. There will be history of bronchial allergic rhinitis. Present will be cough, shortness of breath, fatigue, weight loss, such presentation. You can on escalation have Krebs and wheeze, all the findings. Eosinophils will be raised, WBC can be raised, ESRE will be raised, ball shows eosinophil. Do a biopsy will show eosinophilic infiltration in the lung, and chest X-ray will show photographic negative pulmonary edema. Treatment, they will improve with steroids. This is chronic eosinophilic pneumonia. The third one is the allergic Churg-Strauss syndrome. What is Churg-Strauss syndrome? As we all know, it is a small vessel vasculitis. There is necrotizing vasculitis with granuloma formation this is a small vessel vasculitis. The Churg-Strauss syndrome predominantly involves it can involve the upper respiratory tract, can have recurrent allergic rhinitis, allergic sinusitis. The patient can have bronchial asthma. The patient can have severe peripheral neuropathy. The patient can have GI involvement, renal involvement, and other problems. So basically, the disease will be presenting in around 50 years. This is the usual age of presentation of the patient, the disease. There will be three phases. First phase will be the prodromal phase. The prodromal phase, the patient will have symptoms of allergic rhinitis, bronchial asthma. This will be presented in his 20s to 30s. So there will be some period of 10 years from the onset of bronchial asthma to development of vasculitis. So this is the prodromal symptoms. Then we have the eosinophilic phase. Eosinophilic phase, where there will be peripheral eosinophilia, tissue eosinophilia, there will be eosinophilic infiltration of liver, of kidneys, of the intestine, of the heart. This is the eosinophilic phase. Then the third one will be the vasculitis phase. This vasculitic phase will have prodromal symptoms like fever, myalgia, fatigue, weight loss, arthralgia. Along with that, there will be evidence of vasculitis. This is the late stage of disease, and this is where we diagnose the condition by doing a biopsy. So, what are the symptom complexes? What are the organs that can be involved? So, in the respiratory system, they can cause allergic rhinitis, sinusitis, bronchial asthma. They can even produce hemoptysis, diffuse alveolar damage. Everything is possible in the GI, in the respiratory tract. Cardiovascular system, they can cause acute pericarditis, chronic pericarditis, myocardial infarction, cardiomyopathy, congestive cardiac failure. All these findings are present. Cardiac cause is one of the most important cause of death in EGPA patients. Then renal, they can cause glomerulonephritis, proteinuria, hematuria, acute renal infarct, renal failure. Any finding can be present. The skin manifestations will be purpura, palpable purpura. They can have urticarial rashes. They can have skin nodules. They can have liver reticularis. Any finding can be present. In the GIT, they can cause eosinophilic gastroenteritis. It will be a patient present with abdominal pain, loose stools, with bloody stools. Colitis presentation can be present. They can also have evidence of pancreatitis or cholecystitis or necrotizing inflammation. They can be presenting with. So this is the major organ system involvement in this eosinophilic lung disease. So how do you diagnose? First, the patient will be positive for P-ANCA, perinuclear anti-neutrophil cytoplasmic antigen. P-ANCA will be positive. Then patient will be positive. They will have supportive evidence. ESR can be raised. C-reactive proteins can be raised. The patient can have raised IgE. The patient can have raised eosinophils. They can have ANCA can be positive. Even ANCA can be positive. Because the P-ANCA is positive. ANA can be positive. Sorry. ANA can be positive. Then how do you diagnose it? Based on the CT scan and in the chest X-ray. CT scan can show evidence of lung involvement in the form of ground glass opacities. Ground glass opacities, bilateral ground glass opacities. Chest X-ray again can show reticulonodular infiltrations. Some sort of reticulonodular infiltration can be present, and the urine protein can show proteinuria or hematuria or evidence of renal involvement. So, you do a PFT, they can show obstructive pattern similar to bronchial asthma. The FEV1 by FEV1 be reduced, FEV1 by FEC ratio will also be reduced. It can also show angiography can also be done to rule out findings of coronary vasculitis or cranial vasculitis. So how do you treat? The treatment will be, again, steroids are the first line of treatment, and majority of the patients responds to steroids. Once the steroids, if the patient is not able to respond to steroid, then you can try cyclophosphamide as a second line agent. So 650 milligram IV can be given once in 3 weeks. Cyclophosphamide again does not have any mortality benefit, but they can improve the symptoms. Then maintenance can be tried with azathioprine or mycophenolate mofetil. MMF can be tried. Rituximab can be tried in refractory cases. This can be given. Then anti-interleukin 5, the mepolizumab. This drug is recently being studied extensively in use in any eosinophilic lung disease. Most of the eosinophilic lung disease it can be tried. So this sums up our discussion on this EGPA. Next we will be dealing with hypereosinophilic syndrome. So what is this hypereosinophilic syndrome? As the name suggests, is hypereosinophilia. There is peripheral blood hypereosinophilia, tissue hypereosinophilia, and the bronchoalveolar lavage also shows hypereosinophilia. There will be that will be present. Secondly, there won't be any there will be eosinophilic infiltration of the organs and causing organ dysfunction. There will be second finding. Third, the patient there won't be you wrote all the primary causes of eosinophilia. It is usually secondary to either a myeloproliferative disorder or a lymphoproliferative disorder. The myeloproliferative disorders can be due to mutation in the PDGF receptor alpha or PDGF receptor beta or Janus kinase mutation. The lymphoproliferative disorder, there will be increase in the T cell clonal lymphocyte proliferation. The myeloproliferative variant can present with anemia, thrombocytopenia, splenomegaly, with increase in vitamin B12, increase in tryptase levels. Then the patient can have evidence of myelofibrosis. This forms the myeloproliferative variant of hypereosinophilic syndrome. So, for the lung manifestations, the patient can have cough, breathlessness, eosinophilic infiltration, which can be picked up on chest X-ray or CT. It can be confirmed with bowel eosinophilia. It can also involve other organs, usually seen in a 20 to 40 years men more than women. Can have heart involvement in the form of restrictive cardiomyopathy or endomyocardial fibrosis. That can also involve other organs like liver, intestines, kidneys, but therefore they are very rare. So the treatment, we treat hypereosinophilic syndromes with, as usual, steroids can be used as a first line. The steroids are not responding, you can try interferons or cyclosporins, they can be tried. Interleukin 5 antagonists, they can also, mepolizumab can also be tried in refractory cases. Thank you.